Clark on the baseline, under the hoop, puts it in. Clark has deflected. Boston got it back. Clark, long range, yes!
As overtime intensified, Caitlin Clark walked to the free throw line with the pressure at its peak. The Indiana Fever were fighting for every possession, and each shot carried enormous weight. In a game hanging by a thread, every single point mattered.
Driving. Oh, beautiful feed. Boston put it in.
The game had turned into absolute chaos. Physical, intense, and packed with emotion from start to finish. Indiana had clawed back after trailing by 11 in the third quarter, only to find themselves still down 5 by the end of regulation. With overtime deciding everything and the pressure at its highest, she stepped up and calmly knocked down the first free throw.
Clark, right to the rim.
She never faltered when the stakes were at their highest, delivering a flawless performance in Indiana's biggest test since the showdown with the New York Liberty. Caitlin Clark finished the night with 32 points and 10 assists, recording another double-double as the Indiana Fever defeated the Chicago Sky 114-106.
Clark faded away, got the roll.
To truly understand how significant this moment was, you have to look at the bigger picture of everything that's unfolded this season. The context matters. Earlier in the year, Caitlin Clark lit up the Los Angeles Sparks and powered the Indiana Fever to their first road victory of the season.
With a steal, showing off the handle, back the other way, Caitlin Clark.
She followed that up by carving up the Seattle Storm, putting together another dominant double-double performance. Caitlin Clark was even within reach of a triple-double before head coach Stephanie White decided to bring her to the bench, ending the chase before history could add another chapter.
Clark from just inside the logo. Listen to this place.
After returning from a back injury against the Golden State Valkyries, Caitlin Clark wasted no time reminding everyone what she could do. She took over with a breathtaking stretch of basketball so dominant that it effectively put the game out of reach long before the final buzzer.
Clark launches and hits! Pure!
On the road against the Golden State Valkyries, Caitlin Clark found herself wide open for a brief moment, arms extended, and ready for the pass that never came. The opportunity slipped away, and in a game decided by the smallest of margins, the Indiana Fever walked off the floor with a heartbreaking 2-point loss.
To see if you can get somebody going to the ball. Point 6,
There you
cutting
go.
down, here's the tie! Boston couldn't cut it!
Tensions boiled over on the sideline as Stephanie White openly challenged Caitlin Clark, and Clark didn't hesitate to answer back. The situation quickly escalated, with White keeping her on the bench for extended stretches as if delivering a lesson. Meanwhile, Portland took full advantage, handing Indiana a 16-point defeat, while Clark's night was cut short to just 22 minutes after she picked up her 5th foul.
Settled in offensively late. How about the all-wheel drive? Are you kidding me?
That moment quickly spread across the internet, gaining major attention. After that, Indiana responded in a big way, bouncing back strong with consecutive wins over the Atlanta Dream and the Washington Mystics.
Oh, sidestep, Clark. Sick!
Then came the New York Liberty, who exposed Indiana's struggles at the free throw line during a brutal fourth quarter collapse that completely shifted the momentum of the game.
Action they were trying to do. Clark on the drive. Clark bothered by Jones. No good.
And now in overtime against the Chicago Sky, she delivered when it mattered most. 15 trips to the line, 15 free throws knocked down without a miss. It stood out as the defining individual performance of Caitlin Clark's 2026 season, coming through in the biggest moment of the night. This is Women Hoops. Make sure you subscribe and hit the like button right now because we're about to break this performance down in detail. Caitlin Clark, the full breakdown.
32 points, 8 of 18, 15 of 15 from the line, 7
She finished with 32 points on the night, shooting 8 of 18 from the field for 44%, and just 1 of 6 from beyond the arc. From deep, it wasn't her cleanest performance, only 16% from 3. And the shot that's usually so reliable simply wasn't falling the way it had in previous games. But one number completely reshapes how you view everything that happened. 15 for 15 from the free throw line. Perfect. Every single attempt converted in overtime under the highest pressure against a Chicago Sky team that battled on every possession and even had a 30-point effort coming off the bench from their own star. And this is where Caitlin Clark separates herself from the rest of the league right now. When her primary scoring weapon isn't clicking, when the three ball isn't dropping, when her shot is below her usual standard, she doesn't disappear, she adjusts. She still finds a way to get to 32 points. She drew 9 fouls. She kept attacking the rim without hesitation. She put up 14 points in the paint, going 7 of 12 on 2-point attempts for 58%. Time after time, she drove into contact, forced the defense to react, and punished them at the line, finishing a perfect 15 for 15 in a game where her jumper wasn't carrying the load. In the end, it was a 32-point performance built not on her 3-point shooting, but on toughness, pressure creation, and absolute perfection from the free throw line when it mattered most.
10 assists, a great all-around game.
The 10 assists weren't just a stat line. They reflected a growing pattern that's beginning to define Caitlin Clark's 2026 season. She's reading the game a step ahead, spotting passes before the openings fully develop, and delivering the ball with a speed that leaves defensive rotations scrambling to catch up. And instead of forcing her own shot in those moments, she continues to trust her teammates in situations where most players would choose to take over. Against Chicago's physical defensive pressure, she kept finding ways to unlock the offense, threading passes to cutters, feeding Aaliyah Boston in the post to create clean one-on-one matchups against smaller defenders, and pushing the pace and transition to generate fast break chances before the Sky could get set. Her intensity also spilled over in a tightly contested overtime battle, resulting in a technical foul that showed just how high her competitive edge was burning with everything on the line. The exact moment itself fades in importance compared to what it represented, a player fully locked in, fully engaged, and refusing to back down when the game was at its peak pressure.
Caitlin Clark had a gargantuan game, and I put her on triple-double.
What really stands out is how quickly she processed the moment, zero hesitation, no overthinking, and stepped right back to the free throw line to knock down the next one. That's the goldfish mentality. Forget it, reset, move on. And it's exactly the edge that looked missing earlier this season, but has returned in a big way over the last 3 games. Indiana finished this one at a plus 14 when Caitlin Clark was on the floor in an 8-point win, a clear sign of her impact. When she played, the Fever controlled the game by 14 points overall. She was the swing factor between winning in overtime and potentially losing outright. Quarter by quarter, the story kept shifting. Indiana came out sharp, taking the first quarter 16-8. From the opening possession, Clark was aggressive, attacking downhill, getting to the rim, drawing contact, and forcing Chicago's defense into reaction mode instead of control. The Fever looked confident, like a team riding momentum from back-to-back wins. Then the second quarter flipped everything. Chicago answered with a 26-19 run, refusing to back down after Indiana's strong start.
There were a couple of times tonight where Aaliyah Boston would sure enough have you scratching your head.
Chicago's defense into reaction mode instead of control. The Fever looked confident, like a team riding momentum from back-to-back wins. Then the second quarter flipped everything. Chicago answered with a 26-19 run, refusing to back down after Indiana's strong start. That's when Sydney Taylor caught fire. Off the bench for Chicago, ending the night with 30 points on elite efficiency, 10 of 14 from the field, 7 of 10 from 3, and a perfect 6 of 6 at the line. A true shooting mark of 90.1%. For a bench player in a high-level game, that's not just hot shooting. That's one of the most efficient scoring performances you'll ever see, and it was the main reason Chicago stayed alive while Indiana's defense was otherwise holding firm. At halftime, Indiana's lead had nearly vanished, with the score sitting at 35-34. 1 point separating the teams after a first quarter cushion was almost erased. The third quarter was where things cracked open. Chicago surged ahead, outscoring Indiana 39-27 and building a lead that stretched to 11 points. Taylor kept scoring Skylar. Diggins continued creating in the mid-range, and Azura Stevens cleaned up on the offensive glass. Indiana had no clean answers defensively, and it started to feel like the same story as earlier collapses this season, especially the loss to the New York Liberty, where things slipped away late. Turnovers piled up, defensive breakdowns widened the gap, and even Clark was being met with heavy physical coverage while her outside shot refused to fall. Chicago looked in control. But the fourth quarter told a different story. Indiana flipped the script, winning the period 25-9, erasing an 1-1 point deficit, and forcing overtime. Clark attacked relentlessly, getting downhill, drawing fouls, extending possessions, and repeatedly finding Aaliyah Boston inside, where Chicago simply couldn't match her strength. By the end of regulation, Indiana had clawed all the way back to 87-92, still down 5, still alive. Then overtime became a statement. Indiana dominated the extra period 27-4. Clark went to the line repeatedly and didn't miss, showing complete control in the highest pressure moments. Boston controlled the glass and punished every mismatch inside. Chicago's offense collapsed under Indiana's defensive pressure, managing just 4 points in overtime while the Fever exploded for 27. The final score doesn't fully capture it, but the reality is clear. When it mattered most, Indiana's best two players, Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, outperformed Chicago's stars in every critical moment. And for Boston in particular, it was arguably the most complete performance of her career.
Allen was clutch tonight. I understand that says 5 points.
She finished with 34 points and 12 rebounds, another dominant double-double performance. Aaliyah Boston shot 13 of 26 from the field for 50%, knocked down 2 of 5 from 3 at 40%, and went a perfect 6 for 6 from the free throw line. She also grabbed 7 offensive rebounds, turning them into 14 second chance points on 9 attempts. That's a clear picture of efficiency and power. Every offensive board, she secured almost guaranteed points on the next possession. Inside, she was relentless. Boston battled for position against Chicago's front court on nearly every miss, winning physical matchups and finishing putbacks through contact. It was the kind of interior dominance that forces a defense to constantly collapse, especially when they're already dealing with Caitlin Clark's creation, perimeter shooting, and downhill pressure. You can't fully contain both threats at once. Kelsey Mitchell added 19 points on 7 of 17 shooting, solid production without being overly efficient. She went 2 of 6 from deep, struggled a bit from long range, but still went 5 of 11 inside the arc with 8 points in the paint. Defensively, she contributed with 3 steals, giving Indiana extra possessions in key moments, especially in pressure situations and overtime sequences. The only concern was her -2+-, reflecting some of the defensive challenges in matchups against Chicago's backcourt. Myisha Hines-Allen, on the other hand, was a major impact piece despite not leading the scoring sheet, finishing at a team-high +25 while on the floor, a clear indicator of how much Indiana controlled the game during her minutes.
Lexi Hall, 32 minutes, 11 points, 3 of 13.
She only scored 5 points, but her impact went far beyond the box score. 9 rebounds, 3 assists, and a block in limited minutes provided exactly what Indiana needed from a front court reserve. Myisha Hines-Allen finished at a team best +25, the highest plus-minus on the team that night, underscoring how different Indiana looks when she brings defensive activity, rebounding, and effort without needing to dominate the offense. Lexi Hull logged 32 minutes and added 11 points on 3 of 13 shooting. She also chipped in 8 rebounds, including a relentless 7 offensive boards. That level of hustle from a wing completely shifts the second chance dynamic. Indiana's 19 second chance points were built largely off Hull and Aaliyah Boston attacking the glass with constant pressure, and those extra possessions played a direct role in creating the overtime margin. Ray Burrell also made her presence felt in limited action, knocking down a 3 and adding 2 steals. A short but efficient stint that gave Indiana defensive disruption exactly when the game needed it. Zooming out, the bigger picture is what this Indiana team is becoming. The Fever move to 8-5, riding a 3-game winning streak, but the record still doesn't fully reflect identity they're building. Caitlin Clark's 3 2-point outing came almost entirely from free throws and 2-point scoring rather than her signature three-point barrage. At the same time, Aaliyah Boston delivered a 3-4-point-1-2 rebound performance with 7 offensive boards and 14 second chance points. Together, it shows a version of Indiana that is difficult to prepare for because there is no defensive scheme that can fully contain both at once. The one issue that continues to linger is turnovers. Indiana committed 18 as a team, and Chicago turned those into 20 points. In a game decided by 8, that margin mattered more than anything else. Clark alone had 5, and that number has to tighten up if Indiana wants to consistently beat elite defensive teams without needing overtime to survive. But the defining counterpoint came at the free throw line. Clark went 15 for 15 inches overtime under maximum pressure, a direct answer to the criticism that has followed her early 2026 season. The questions about clutch execution, late game reliability, and whether Indiana can close tight contests were all answered in that moment. When everything was on the line, she didn't miss once. 8-5, 3 straight wins. Clark perfect from the stripe, Boston with 34-12. And Indiana sitting in a strong position heading into the next matchup against the Connecticut Sunday. The momentum is real, the ceiling is rising, and in overtime, their best player reminded the entire league. What happens when she gets to control the moment, every single free throw falling exactly as it needed to?